PTSD is bullshit. Now, that's a very, very triggering thing to hear, especially if you're experiencing that or you've been labeled with it before. So I just want to say from the get-go, this conversation is not designed to make people feel shit, to feel down, and to degrade or dismiss the things that you've been through. This podcast is here to empower you with something that allows you to grow, heal, and transform from the things that we've been through. So with that being said, I'm going to give you a ton of information today. Trigger warning for this conversation, of course. I've coached over 10,000 people. I've written a book. It's called The Inspired Life Method. It's sold thousands and thousands of copies. And I've got thousands of testimonials from clients that I've helped heal from trauma, from rape, abuse, manipulation, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and all the things that gets categorized as someone with PTSD. So I want to break this down for you of how I want to reframe this and give you an empowering lesson to go from here. The only favor I ask for you guys today is if you just like this video and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Even if you disagree with me, I'm totally okay with that. So with that being said, I'm going to begin and rock and roll into this. So firstly, let's define PTSD. I actually got ChatGPT to help us out here. So I said, define PTSD. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental condition that can develop after a person experiences or witnesses a traumatic event. This could include things like war, natural disasters, serious accidents, assault, abuse, anything that causes intense fear, helplessness, or horror. So they've got some symptoms here. They re-experience, they have flashbacks, nightmares, intrusive thoughts. They avoid certain things. They have negative thoughts and moods, and they have levels of hyper-arousal. You could also have hypo-arousal, depending on your coping mechanism. So what I want to reframe for you is this. So instead of saying PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the challenge with that part is the last letter, the D, the disorder part. Because whatever you believe, you make it true. Your beliefs and perceptions shift your neuroplasticity, your neuropathways, and your biochemistry. Whatever you believe, you make it true. You also have a confirmation bias that literally finds things to reinforce the things that you believe. So if you believe you have a disorder, your biochemistry will change, your neuropathways will change, and your reality changes to be someone who has a disorder. What I want to reframe this to, instead of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, I want to change it to this. PTS, post-trauma symptoms. That's it. Let me break it down for you to give you each step of what trauma is and how it shows up like this. 3 things. I talk about this a lot in my content. Number 1 is trauma. Let's define trauma. My definition of trauma is a moment of overwhelm or underwhelm. Honestly, find me a definition that isn't as correct as that, because there's a lot of different ones that I've seen out there. I like, I'll give you a couple that I like. Dr. Gabor Mate says this really well. He says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. Dr. Sarah Woodhouse, she says, trauma is unprocessed memories. Dr. John Demartini, he's my biggest mentor. I'm a Demartini facilitator. For anyone that has done his work, you can probably tell the language I'm using. He says, anything outside of love and gratitude is a lopsided perception. So trauma is a lopsided perception. So that's trauma. That's number 1. So trauma is what we're focused on today. For every trauma you have or wound that you have, you create coping mechanisms. It's what you do to protect, overcome, and hide the trauma. These can look like things like getting anxious, getting stressed, getting overwhelmed, disassociating, overachieving, people-pleasing, smoking a cigarette, eating food, sex, addictions. The list goes on. It's what you do to get through that pain, to get over the trauma, to overcompensate from the trauma. That's the symptoms. PTS, post-trauma symptoms. This is this part. It's your coping mechanisms or the patterns or whatever it is that you've developed post the trauma. So you're going through something traumatic, a moment of overwhelm or underwhelm. It's when, to zoom in on that even more, it's a moment of overwhelm and underwhelm, and in that moment, you split your consciousness. You become aware of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides. You create memories and anti-memories. If you guys want to go in more detail with this shit, come work with me properly, or go study Dr. John Demartini's work. He teaches this in a lot more detail than what I go to. He goes through all the brain chemistry, the parts of the brain, the nervous system, all this shit. He goes a lot deeper than what I do. So trauma is a moment of overwhelm or underwhelm where you split your consciousness. You also very often open an emotional loop that you don't close. So it's an unclosed loop of emotions. That's where breath work and somatic healing would come into it, because you haven't finished the loop of the trauma response. Dr. Peter Levine teaches this really, really well. He teaches somatic experiencing. So essentially, you go into a fight, flight, freeze, or immobilization response. So say tiger comes in, let's use an example. So tiger comes in, and the gazelle goes into freeze. So it has all this pent-up energy, has all this fight or flight energy, and it goes into freeze. So it suppresses all of that energy. Once the tiger goes away, say the gazelle survives and the tiger goes away. For anyone that has seen this, and there's videos of this on YouTube, and I share this at my events, the gazelle, the animal, will start discharging, tremoring, and shaking and convulsing to get rid of that excess energy that's been pent up into its nervous system. Human beings don't do that, do we? We have the neocortex, so we over-fucking-think everything, intellectualize everything, and we suppress and disassociate from the emotions. So there's all these unclosed loops of emotions in your fucking nervous system. Again, adding to the symptoms. This is why people have dysregulated nervous systems. It's why they avoid certain things. It's why they get triggered into certain responses. These are all the symptoms of trauma. And then third part to finish this off. So trauma was the first part, a moment of overwhelm or underwhelm. Second is the symptoms. So the coping mechanisms, the patterns that we develop post-trauma. Third is a trigger. Something reminds you of the trauma and triggers you into the coping mechanism. Nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. So that's when you see or perceive or project onto something that triggers you, it's reminding you of something you have not healed through yet. So that's why when you see things that remind you of dad or mum or childhood or whatever you've been through, it triggers you into some form of a pattern. Those are the three things I like to break down. And the reason I like teaching it like this, it empowers you to do something about it. If you've listened to any of my content, I talk a lot about labels. So when I was younger, I went through my trauma. Mum and dad were abusive to each other. They fought each other. They punched holes in walls. My dad was abusive, mentally, emotionally, physically to me and my family. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, autism, ADHD. I was very dysregulated. I had a lot of trauma. I share in my book, anyone that's read my book, there's a story I share where my dad and my brother were having this really verbal, aggressive argument in our house. And I'm like, I think 10 years old or give or take at the time. And I hide in my room and I won't repeat the words, but you fucking C word, this, the very aggressive fight. My brother runs down the hallway, locks himself in his room. My dad goes down and punches down the door to beat up my brother to get into that. That was my type of childhood. That was my mental and emotional abuse and trauma that I went through. So when people were abusive or people were violent or people were rude or angry or yelling, that used to trigger me. That was my symptoms and my triggers from my shit. But the thing is, and the reason, again, I want to teach it this way, is you can heal trauma. You can fucking heal. I've helped thousands of people heal their trauma. I share a lot of my testimonials online around, I'll use this one. I use it a lot, but I'm going to use it again just because it's so powerful. So I wasn't planning to show this today, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's so bloody powerful for you guys. So this is my program, my online community. If you want to work with me, there's a free trial down below. You can go grab it. And there are thousands of testimonials in this program. So this one is from Kel. I've shared it many times. It's just such a powerful testimonial. So she says this. So trigger warning. She had a BT trauma. She was sexually abused from her dad from the ages of 5 till 9. And she went through trauma therapy for 30 years and never healed it. And she had PTSD off the back end of it. So she had all her post-traumatic symptoms, so post-trauma symptoms, PTS, that triggered her and sabotaged her and would trigger her throughout her life. So she went through my process. My balancing process is my process to heal trauma. You can pause the video if you want to read the entire testimonial. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's obviously a big testimonial. But she says this here. To say I love my dad is something I never thought could ever be possible considering I was bedridden 8 years ago in so much pain. It's been a tough 30 plus years I've spent in trauma therapy, but I'm so full of gratitude writing this in this moment. Again, if you listen to one of the definitions I shared on trauma was John DeMartini. He says, anything you experience outside of love and gratitude is a lopsided perception. So in those moments of overwhelm or underwhelm, you split your awareness. You become conscious of the downsides. You don't become conscious or you become unconscious to the upsides. You also often open an emotional loop that you don't close. That creates all of the symptoms and triggers that we experience through life. You don't have a fucking disorder. Take away the D part of that statement. Because if you believe you have a disorder, you reinforce it. You find things to affirm and reconfirm the things you believe. It's called the confirmation bias I mentioned earlier. The ego, your human ego, is your human identity. And it has two main traits. One, it avoids pain. So that's why when people talk about things you're insecure about or where you have trauma, you're going to deflect, defend, and not want to talk about it. Second, is it reinforces itself. It makes itself true. If you believe you're not enough, if you believe you're unworthy, if you believe you're a piece of shit, if you believe you're not good with money, if you believe you've got a condition, you've got a disorder, you make it true. Your pathways, neural pathways change. Your biochemistry changes to match the beliefs and the perceptions that you have. Sorry, I get quite passionate because I'm obviously passionate about this. So I hope you got value from this. So to summarize this, stop using PTSD, shift it to PTS. You don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. You have post-trauma symptoms. You have some symptoms from trauma, which is normal. We create things to overcompensate, overcome, and protect us from our hurt. Past hurt creates future fear. You don't want to experience that pain again, so you're on the outlook trying to protect yourself. I'll use the tiger example again. A tiger comes into my room and attacks me and abuses me and that's trauma for me. A moment of overwhelm or underwhelm. If I don't heal that and process that and integrate that moment, I'm going to live my entire life looking out for tigers, on the outlook for tigers. And if I see a tiger, it's going to trigger me into a pattern again. Fight, flight, freeze, or whatever the pattern is. So take away the disorder part. You have some post-trauma symptoms, which are stemming from trauma. We want to isolate what that trauma is, that moment in time of overwhelm and underwhelm, and mentally process it and emotionally close the loop off. That's what we want to do. I hope you got value from this. There was a lot of information. Again, my intention was not to dismiss or make anyone feel shit about what they've been through, because you want to validate what you've been through. Of course, validate it. Just don't perpetuate it. Don't continue the patterns, because whatever you believe, you make true. You have some trauma. You have some symptoms from said trauma. You can heal the trauma. Come work with me. I'll give you my processes. My balancing process would change your life. I've got thousands of testimonials of people that have gone through it, and I'd love to serve you. If you got value from this, please like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below. If you totally disagree with me, that's okay. What I'd suggest listening to, go study Dr. John Demartini. Go study Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Bruce Lipton. They're probably my top three when it comes to these world of things. Peter Crone is fantastic as well. Go study those people, because this is what's happening day to day. People are transforming their lives because they stop reinforcing and believing they have a disorder or a condition. I hope you got value from this, guys. Please like, please subscribe, please share. If you want to work with me, grab a copy of my book. You can start there. It's on Amazon, Kindle, Audible. It's got heaps of 5-star reviews. I've got a free trial down below. You get a one-on-one call with me when you grab the trial. And I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Hope you got value from this. Speak soon. Bye.